Success leaves clues, and the most significant clue I've discovered over decades of studying human achievement is that talent, that natural gift we often praise, bows down to persistent, focused hard work every single time. I want to tell you about Michael, a young man I met in 1990. He had everything going for him. A natural gift for mathematics that made complex calculations look like child's play. His professors called him a genius. His classmates were in awe, and everyone predicted he would revolutionize the field of quantum physics. But today, you won't find his name in any scientific journal or breakthrough paper. Why? Because Michael believed his talent was enough. While other students spent long hours in the laboratory, Michael relied on his quick understanding. When others stayed late to perfect their research, he left early, confident his natural abilities would carry him through. 10 years later, I ran into one of his former classmates, now a leading researcher at CERN. Whatever happened to Michael, I asked. The answer was simple yet profound. He got outworked. You see, in every field, in every profession, and in every worthy pursuit, there's always someone with less natural ability who rises to the top through sheer persistence and hard work. They're the ones who arrive first and leave last. They're the ones who don't rely on flashes of brilliance, but instead trust in the steady flame of consistent effort. I've spent 40 years studying success patterns, watching thousands of careers rise and fall. And I can tell you this with absolute certainty. Talent alone is nothing but potential. It's like having a powerful car with an empty gas tank. Hard work, that's your fuel. That's what turns possibility into reality. Let me share something that might shake your beliefs about success. Throughout history, we've been fascinated by naturals, those individuals who seem to possess extraordinary gifts from birth. But let me tell you something that might surprise you. Being a natural is often a curse in disguise. Take Robert, a brilliant salesman I knew in the early 1990s. He could charm anyone. Clients practically threw their checkbooks at him. His first year in sales, he broke every company record without breaking a sweat. His managers called him a natural-born seller. But 5 years later, he was struggling to meet basic quotas, while his less talented colleagues had built solid, growing client bases. Robert never developed the habits of preparation, follow-up, and consistent client nurturing. His talent became his trap. Here's Sarah, a gifted writer whose first novel at age 22 earned critical acclaim. The next great American novelist, they called her. But while other writers kept producing book after book, Sarah waited for inspiration to strike. She believed her talent was simply flow when the moment was right. 20 years later, she's still known for just that one book, while her less talented peers have built respected careers through daily writing habits. Let me share a different story. Meet Tom, a man who struggled with basic arithmetic in school. Nobody would have called him mathematically gifted. But Tom had something more valuable than natural ability. He had determination. Every morning for 15 years, he spent 2 hours studying financial markets before his regular job. He didn't rely on quick insights or natural trading instincts. Instead, he built his knowledge brick by brick through consistent, dedicated effort. Today, Tom manages one of the most successful hedge funds in Chicago, not because he was gifted, but because he outworked everyone else in his field. His clients don't care about natural talent. They care about results. Is what most people don't understand about talent. It's like being given a head start in a marathon. Sure, you might begin ahead of the pack, but that advantage disappears quickly if you don't keep running at full strength. I've watched countless naturally gifted individuals get overtaken by seemingly ordinary people who simply refuse to stop moving forward. The world is filled with gifted failures and successful plotters. Walk into any coffee shop, and you'll likely find at least one naturally talented individual explaining why the world hasn't recognized their gifts. Meanwhile, someone with half their natural ability is out there working, improving, and actually achieving their goal. Consider the story of Harrison, a classical violinist who started playing at age 12. Considered late by professional standards. His first teacher told him he had no natural gift for music. But Harrison practiced 6 hours a day, every day, while his more talented peers relied on their natural abilities. 20 years later, he performs with major symphonies worldwide, while many of his naturally gifted contemporaries left music altogether. You see, talent is like a butterfly that lands in your shoulder. It's beautiful, but it's temporary. Hard work. That's the iron structure you build that stands forever. When you understand this truth, you'll stop worrying about your natural abilities and start focusing on what really matters. Your effort, your persistence, your daily habits. The most dangerous words in the world are "I'm a natural." Because once you believe that, you've already started to fail. True success doesn't come from what you're born with. It comes from what you do with whatever you have. Think about this. Every major breakthrough, every significant achievement, every lasting success comes down, not to moments of brilliant insight, but to hours, days, and years of persistent effort. That's why the human brain is a remarkable machine, but it's not the lightning-fast insights that create success. It's the steady, consistent actions we take day after day. Scientists have recently discovered something fascinating about our brain. They physically change with repeated practice. They call it neuroplasticity, but I call it proof of what I've observed for decades. Every time you repeat an action, you're not just going through motions, you are actually carving pathways in your brain. It's like walking through a field of tall grass. The first time it's difficult. The second time you can barely see your previous path. But walk that same route 100 times, and you've created a clear trail. Walk it 1,000 times, and you've built a permanent path. Let me tell you about Jack, a man I met in manufacturing. When computer-controlled machines first revolutionized the industry in the early 1990s, most veteran machinists resisted the change. But Jack, who had no special technical talent, spent 1 hour every morning learning the new systems. Just 1 hour. His coworkers laughed at his slow progress. "You're not cut out for this," they said. But Jack kept at it day after day, month after month. 3 years later, when the company fully automated, it's who they put in charge of the entire operation. Not the naturally technical workers who crammed for a few weeks when change became inevitable. They chose Jack, the man who had built his knowledge consistently over time. Look at the world of sports. People talk about Michael Jordan's natural athleticism, but few mention that he shot 500 practice shots every morning before his teammates even arrived at the gym. Was he talented? Absolutely. But it was his consistent effort that turned that talent into greatness. Here's something powerful. I've noticed small actions, repeated daily, create unstoppable momentum. Imagine saving just $5 a day. Seems insignificant, right? But do that for 20 years, add modest interest, and you build substantial wealth. Success works the same way. Small, consistent efforts compound over time. I remember meeting a woman named Patricia who wanted to write a book. She had no writing background, no English degree, nothing that people would call natural talent. But she made a decision to write just 300 words every day. Not when inspiration struck, not when she felt talented. Every single day. Most days, those 300 words weren't very good. Some days they were terrible. But she kept going. You know what happened? Those 300 words became 1,000 words. Those bad sentences became decent paragraphs. Those decent paragraphs became good chapters. 3 years later, her book hit the bestseller list. Not because she was gifted, but because she understood the power of consistent effort. This is what separates the achievers from the dreamers. Dreamers wait for big moments, for inspiration, for that perfect alignment of circumstances. Achievers understand that success is built in those small moments when nobody's watching, when it doesn't feel important, when it would be easier to skip just one day. But here's the truth about skipping just one day. It's never just one day. Skip Monday and Tuesday becomes easier to skip. Skip Tuesday and Wednesday barely feels like a choice anymore. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. I'd rather see you practice something for 15 minutes every day than 5 hours once a month. Think about building muscle. You can't lift weights for 10 hours straight and expect to match the results of someone who exercises properly for 1 hour a day, every day. Your body, your mind, your skills, they all develop through consistent, repeated effort. Let me share a secret about consistency that few people understand. It's not about willpower, it's about systems. Every successful person I've studied has built systems that make consistent effort easier. They don't rely on motivation or talent. They create environments and routines that practically guarantee their success. Take a professional musician I know. She doesn't decide each day whether to practice. Her violin is always out of its case, in a dedicated practice space. Her music is always ready. She doesn't need willpower because she's removed all barriers to her daily practice. That's the power of systems supporting consistent effort. Remember this. Every master was once a beginner. Every expert was once clueless. The only difference between those who achieve their dreams and those who don't is consistent, persistent effort over time. Talent might determine where you start, but consistency determines where you finish. And speaking of finishing, let me share something fascinating about how this consistent effort actually translates into measurable success. Let me share something fascinating about success that most people never consider. It can actually be calculated. That's right, we can mathematically predict your likelihood of success based on the hours you commit to mastery. And these numbers tell an extraordinary story. Research has shown that it takes approximately 10,000 hours of dedicated practice to achieve mastery in any field. Now let's break this down into real, practical terms. If someone practices their craft for 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, it would take them about 10 years to reach that level of mastery. That might sound like a long time, but here's where it gets interesting. Who relies on his natural talent and practices sporadically when inspired in Susan, who has average ability but practices consistently. Let's do the math. Mark practices intensively for 6 hours every Saturday. That's 312 hours per year. Susan practices just 2 hours every day, including weekends. That's 730 hours per year. After 5 years, Mark has accumulated 1,560 hours of practice, while Susan has 3,650 hours. More than twice as much. But the real difference isn't just in the numbers. It's in the quality of practice. Daily, consistent effort creates deeper learning than sporadic bursts. It's like watering a plant. Regular, modest amounts help it grow strong, while occasional flooding doesn't help and might even cause damage. Let me give you a real-world example. In 1994, I met 2 stockbrokers who started their careers on the same day. Richard had a natural gift for numbers and market insight. He worked intensely during market hours, but spent his evenings and weekends pursuing other interests. David was average in every way, but he dedicated 1 extra hour before and after market hours to studying trends and analyzing companies. That's just 2 extra hours a day. Seems small, right? But let's do the math. Over 5 years, those 2 extra hours added up to 2,600 hours of additional market knowledge. Today, David manages a portfolio worth billions, while Richard still handles the same modest client load he started with. Here's another calculation that might surprise you. If you improve just 1 each day through consistent effort, you'll be 37 times better at the end of 1 year. That's the power of compound improvement. Meanwhile, sporadic effort, even from a talented individual, might yield a 20-day improvement in short bursts, but then plateaus or declines during inactive periods. Think about learning a language. Studying for 15 minutes every day yields better results than a 3-hour session once a week. Why? Because your brain needs regular exposure to form lasting neural connections. After 1 year, those daily 15 minutes add up to 91 hours of practice, while weekly sessions total just 52 hours. Now here's the most important calculation of all, the cost of waiting. Every day you delay starting your consistent effort, you're not just losing that day. You're losing the compound effect of all the days that would follow. If you start today practicing 2 hours daily, in 5 years you'll have 3,650 hours of mastery built up. Wait a year to start, and at the same 5-year mark, you'll have only 20 hours. That difference, 730 hours, could be what separates success from mediocrity. Remember this formula: small, consistent effort times time equals unstoppable success. It's not about making huge leaps. It's about taking small steps forward every single day. Because those small steps, when added up, create a distance that talent alone can never cover. But as you begin this journey of consistent effort, you're going to face obstacles. And that brings us to something crucial you need to understand. Now let me tell you something that most motivational speakers won't tell you. The path hard work is often lonely, challenging, and filled with moments of doubt. But understanding these barriers is the first step to breaking through them. The first obstacle you'll face is skepticism, not just from others, but from yourself. Your mind will whisper, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe those talented people know something I don't. I've seen countless individuals hit this wall of self-doubt, usually around the 3-month mark of their journey. This is when the initial excitement wears off and reality sets in. Let me tell you about Marcus, a software developer he met in 1992. He didn't graduate from a prestigious college. He didn't have a natural knack for coding. What he had was a commitment to write code every single day, even if just for an hour. 6 months in, while his peers were landing jobs at big tech companies, Marcus was still building basic programs. The doubt crept in. Maybe I'm just not smart enough, he told me. But here's what Marcus did differently. He turned his self-doubt into data. Instead of quitting, he started keeping a logbook of his progress. Every small win, every problem solved, every concept mastered, he wrote it all down. When doubt crept in, he had proof of his progress. Today, Marcus owns a successful software company, employing many of those naturally gifted programmers who once doubted him. The second major barrier is what I call the valley of disappointment. That period when you're putting in the work but not yet seeing the results. This is where most people quit. They've been practicing, learning, and pushing forward, but the breakthrough seems nowhere in sight. Let me tell you something crucial. This valley is actually the birth canal of success. Every significant achievement in history has gone through this valley. Thomas Edison faced it during his 1,000 failed attempts at the light bulb. But here's what separated him. He understood that each failure wasn't a stop sign, but a signpost pointing him toward success. The third barrier is isolation. When you choose the path of hard work over talent, you often have to say no to things others say yes to. You might miss social events to practice. Friends might not understand your commitment. Family members might question your choices. This isolation can be crushing if you don't understand that it's actually a sign you're on the right path. But here's where breakthroughs happen, right at the point where most people quit. I've seen it countless times. It's like breaking through a wall. The first 1,000 hits might not even crack it, but hit number 10, or one suddenly breaks through. Success isn't about hitting harder. It's about hitting longer. Remember this. Your breakthrough is often closest when the urge to quit is strongest. That moment when you think, I can't do this anymore, that's often just inches away from your breakthrough point. And here's something powerful about choosing hard work over talent. You develop an unshakable confidence that no natural ability can match, because you know deep in your bones that you can outwork any obstacle that comes your way. This brings me to a surprising truth about starting with less natural ability. It's something that might sound strange at first. Starting with less natural ability might be the greatest advantage you could ever have. Let me explain why this apparent disadvantage is actually a hidden blessing. When you start behind, when you lack natural talent, you're forced to develop something far more valuable, a bulletproof work ethic. Think about learning to walk. A child who struggles to take their first steps develops stronger leg muscles than one who walks easily. Those extra months of trying, falling, and getting back up build strength that lasts a lifetime. I'll never forget meeting Anthony in 1995. He was a stutterer who wanted to become a public speaker. Now, most people would say that's like a tone-deaf person wanting to become an opera singer. But Anthony's speech impediment gave him an incredible advantage. He had to work 3 times harder than any natural speaker. He practiced in front of mirrors for hours. He recorded himself speaking thousands of times. He studied the mechanics of speech in a way that naturally fluent speakers never needed to. Today, Anthony is one of the most sought-after speakers in the corporate world. Why? Because his struggle gave him a deeper understanding of communication than any natural talent could provide. He doesn't just speak well. He understands the architecture of powerful speech in a way only someone who had to rebuild their speaking ability from the ground up could. Here's another powerful truth. When you start behind, you develop an immunity to failure. Natural talents often crumble at their first real setback because they've never had to develop resilience. But when you're used to struggling, when you're familiar with failure, it loses its power to stop you. Take Maria, a dancer who started training at age 18, while most professionals start as young children. Her dance teachers told her she was too old, too stiff, had the wrong body type. But Maria had an advantage. She had no reputation to protect, no natural grace to rely on. She could fail spectacularly without shame because everyone already expected her to fail. This freedom to fail became her superpower. Every day, Maria stayed 2 hours after class, practicing basic moves that came naturally to others. She filmed herself dancing and studied each movement with scientific precision. While natural dancers relied on their innate sense of rhythm, Maria broke down every step into measurable units she could master. 10 years later, she founded a dance studio that specializes in teaching late bloomers like herself. Her students often surpass those with natural talent because she's taught them something more valuable, the art of systematic progress. When you start behind, you also develop another crucial skill, strategic thinking. Because you can't rely on natural ability, you're forced to find smarter ways to work. You become an efficiency expert out of necessity. While the talented rely on their gifts, you build systems, develop techniques, and create methods that ultimately produce better results. Think about this. Every callus on a worker's hands represents knowledge that goes bone deep. Every scar tells a story of lessons learned. Starting behind forces you to build mental calluses, emotional scars that don't weaken you, but make you stronger. And here's the most powerful advantage of starting behind. You never take success for granted. Those who succeed through pure talent often don't understand the mechanics of their own success, making it hard to replicate or teach others. But when you build success through hard work, you know exactly how you got there. And more importantly, you know you can do it again. This brings us to something crucial. The need to create a systematic approach to success. Success without a system is like trying to build a house without blueprints. It's possible, but highly unlikely. Let me share with you the exact framework that turns hard work from a vague concept into a precision tool for achievement. First, you need to understand that a success system isn't about motivation. It's about automation. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't need motivation to do it. You don't need inspiration. You do it because it's part of your automatic routine. That's what we're going to build for your success. Start by creating what I call a power hour. This is the first hour of your day, and it belongs to you and your goals. Not your boss, not your family, not your obligations, just you. A banker I mentored named Frank used his power hour to study market patterns before anyone else arrived at the office. Within 3 years, his investment predictions became so accurate that the firm created a new position just for his expertise. Here's your practical system for the power hour. Wake up at the same time every day, yes, including weekends. Your body and mind need consistency. Within 15 minutes of waking, begin your focused work. No emails, no phone, no distractions. This is your time to put in focused effort toward mastery. Next, implement what I call the 3-block method. Divide your day into 3 non-negotiable blocks of focused work, each lasting 45 minutes. The key word here is non-negotiable. These blocks are as important as a meeting with the president. You wouldn't skip that, would you? This system, the first block was 6:06:45 a.m. You design techniques. Second block, 15 more, no p.m., practicing those techniques. Third block, 15 p.m., reviewing her progress and planning the next day. Within 18 months, she went from creating basic logos to designing national advertising campaigns. Now here's the crucial part, tracking your progress. Get a simple calendar, and every day you complete your 3 blocks, mark it with a big X. Soon you'll have a chain of X's. Your only job is to not break the chain. This method seems simple, but it's devastatingly effective. It turns abstract goals into visible progress. Build what I call success triggers into your environment. These are physical cues that activate your work system. A writer I know places her laptop and notebook in the exact same position every night, so they're ready when she wakes up. A musician keeps his guitar on a stand by his favorite chair, not in its case. These aren't just habits. They're environmental commands to your brain that it's time to work. Create a progress portfolio every week. Save evidence of your work. Photos, documents, recordings, anything that proves you're moving forward. When self-doubt creeps in, and it will, this portfolio becomes your weapon against uncertainty. It's hard to argue with documented progress. Here's another crucial element, a feedback loop. At the end of each week, spend 20 minutes answering 3 questions. What worked? What didn't? What will I adjust? Write these answers down. This isn't just reflection. It's strategic planning. A martial artist, used this system to identify that he learned techniques faster in the morning than evening. This one insight doubled his progress when he rearranged his training schedule. Remember, your system needs to include recovery time. Hard work without recovery is like driving a car without oil changes. Eventually, you'll break down. Schedule what I call strategic breaks, short periods of complete disconnection from your work. These aren't lazy breaks. They're part of your success system. Finally, building what I call accountability anchors. These are regular check-ins with someone who understands your goals. Meet with them monthly to review your progress portfolio. Their role isn't to judge, but to witness your journey and help you spot patterns you might miss. Your success system isn't just about working hard. It's about working hard in the right way, at the right time, with the right focus. When you build this system and follow it religiously, something remarkable happens. Success becomes inevitable. Speaking of inevitable success, let me dispel one of the most dangerous myths in achievement. Let me tell you something that might shock you. Every overnight success I've studied in the past 40 years took an average of 10 years to achieve. The overnight success story is a fairy tale that does more harm than good because it makes people give up when success doesn't come quickly. Take the case of Tim, a software entrepreneur who suddenly hit it big in 1996 with a revolutionary program. The newspapers called him an overnight sensation. What they didn't mention were the 6 failed companies before that. They didn't talk about the 12 years he spent learning programming while working as a janitor. They didn't tell you about the 10,000 hours of coding he did while his friends were watching TV. You see, success is like an iceberg. People only see the top 10K, the achievement, the recognition, the overnight breakthrough. They never see the 90 below the surface. The years of preparation, the countless failures, the quiet persistence when no one was watching. You remember the instant success of that famous coffee chain that seemed to explode across America in the 1990s? What most people don't know is that its founder spent 14 years studying coffee roasting, testing locations, and perfecting his business model before the company became a household name. 14 years of preparation for what the media called an overnight sensation. Here's what actually happens behind every overnight success. First, there's the preparation phase, usually 5 to 10 years of focused learning and practice. Then comes the growth phase, 2 to 3 years of increasing momentum. Finally, there's the breakthrough phase, that short period when everyone suddenly notices and calls you an overnight success. Was most important truth about success timelines. The work you do in obscurity is what creates your success in reality. It's during those invisible years that you build the foundation, develop the skills, and create the value that eventually leads to your breakthrough. Remember this, every overnight success has a long night. And that long night is where the real work happens. That's when you separate yourself from those who merely wish for success and join the ranks of those who work for it. Now let me give you specific actions you can take today. Right now in this moment, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to the comfortable embrace of natural talent, relying on what comes easily. The other path of hard work seems harder, longer, darker. But I'm telling you, it's the only path that leads to lasting success. Here's your challenge. Starting tomorrow morning, before the sun rises, begin your power hour. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Just start. Take the skills you want to master and break them into daily actions. Then do those actions every single day, without fail, without excuses. Put a calendar on your wall tonight. Tomorrow mark your first X. Start your chain, whether you feel like it or not, whether you think you're making progress or not, keep marking those X's. Promise yourself you won't break the chain for the next 30 days. Remember this, 10 years from now you arrive somewhere, that's guaranteed. The only question is whether you arrive at a destination chosen by your habits or one chosen by your hopes. The choice is yours, and the time is now. The world doesn't care about your talent. The world doesn't care about your excuses. The world only cares about what you do. So get out there and outwork everyone. Your time starts now.